Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest, Ms. Ronda Phillips. She's a certified life coach, a self-published author, speaker, and television host of Dare to Outdo Yourself. How you doing there, Ms. Phillips?
I'm doing great, Mr. Brown, and thank you so much for having me on your program on tonight.
Thank you for coming on this show. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, for starters, just to let you know that I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, right here in North Carolina area. But I've been in Charlotte now for pretty much nearly 30 years. And growing up for me, I was in a household with both parents for the most part. And I have two younger brothers, two siblings. And so for me, being the oldest in the family of three, I was given much more responsibility, greater expectation of me toward things around the home, the household, and of course looking out for my brothers. But interestingly, being the oldest, they had more freedom to do things that I was not able to do. I don't understand. Maybe it was a male thing. I don't know.
Oh, come on, man.
But nevertheless, I just learned how to be more responsible in that regard.
Okay. So, you're a certified life coach.
Yes.
What made you want to go about doing that?
Well, I would say that it wasn't something that I set out to do, but I would say over the course of my life, even stemming back from my childhood, I would have to say that a lot of it had to do with some experiences over the course of my life. For starters, growing up, I was in a home with both parents, of course, and my siblings. However, I did not know at the time that there was dysfunction in the home because for me, I thought it was normal to grow up in a household where you have a parent who is an alcoholic, who is a gambler, and who basically is verbally abusive for the most part because of the alcoholism. And I thought that was normal until I actually, became older as a teenager and, acquired friends and discovered that that wasn't the norm. And so early on, I did not even have friends or didn't try to have friends because we moved around a lot. For the most part, it was because of financial issues, because of the alcoholism, because of the gambling that we ended up having to move from place to place pretty much every year. And so if I did gain friends, I got to the point where I didn't even try to gain friends or acquire friends after, so many times because that became what was just a routine for us. So I learned that there was very little stability, as I, grew up, and it wasn't a pleasant thing. But I would say for the most part, for me, just being in a position or being in a place where I'm having to look out primarily for others in my life, and I would say I would go back to my brothers, being there for them for the most part. My father, he was the one who was in the home a lot more than my mother because she worked most of the time. And so I found myself to be in a position where my father, I think, took a lot of resentments that he had against my mother out on me because I was there more than she was. So I think because of that, it put me in a position to be more observant and aware of how people in position can be, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing. But I learned from that to know what not to do, as well as what one should do when you're placed in position of leadership or authority.
How did your upbringing affect you right now as far as the way you think about certain issues, as far as family members or whatever that has going through other addictions? How do you handle things like that today?
Well, I would say that, it's interesting because once again, growing up, I thought that was the norm. However, now I know that family is very important to me. And I know that whenever there was anyone in my life, whether it be a family member, whether it be someone who is someone that I've had to work with, in any capacity, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be career-wise, whether it be ministry, whatever the case may be, my heart goes out to people just overall. One of the things I learned is that it is so important to be a person who is in a position that you don't just say, do as I say and not as I do, but that you be one to lead appropriately by example, and that be whether you are someone who is in a position of leadership or authority in the home, as a parent, as an older sibling, someone who's in the workplace, if you have your own place of business, or if you're in ministry, or whatever capacity it may be, that you be one, just in how you lead your life overall, that you be one to lead by example in the appropriate way. And that's something that I learned in my experiences, especially early on in life, how important that is, because I did have an experience whereby my father, again, as I grew older as a teenager, I became more voiceful. And so to some that may have seemed that I was disrespectful at times. However, for me, I believe that no matter who you are, that it's not about the age. It's about how you treat others, because I know that for the most part, I believe everyone wants to be respected.
Correct.
But you have to also be one to earn that as well. But I did have an experience early on, which was really like a defining moment for me, whereby my father gave me a command to do something, but I had never done it before. And he never gave me the instruction to do it, or he never showed me how to do it. So I had to do it by just, pretty much trial and error. But during that whole process, I was chastised, I was ridiculed, I was called names, I was, being talked at and down to about what I was doing wrong. So I kept asking, well, can you show me how to do it? Or can you tell me what to do?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that never took place. So basically, that never happened. So I just pretty much walked away from the situation because I knew that I could not make it better. So to some, that made it seem like I was running away. However, I felt like, or I believed in that moment that I was doing the right thing, because if you're not willing to show me how to do it, then what else am I supposed to do?
Correct.
So a defining moment for me was that, once again, one must be in a position to be willing to lead by example and in the appropriate manner. And so that means that it's one thing to give someone a command to do something. And that's, to me, that's not acceptable, just to give a command and not give instruction behind it. The second thing is that it's good to give instruction, to have step-by-step instructions, or have some measure of instruction that someone can use as a guide or some means of a sample to go by. And that's great. But I think even, overall the best thing is to be able to, be in a position that you're willing to actually be the example or give the example firsthand. So that means, as an example, that, if someone needs to learn how to scrub a floor, am I willing to get down on my knees and get the sponge and the soap and all of that and show them how to do it firsthand?
Correct.
And to me, that's the greatest example. But overall, how one lives their life is the biggest example of all. So to me, that was a defining moment, and how that has transferred and that transitioned to me, and how I just pretty much represent myself overall in life.
Okay. The person that was in an addiction, who was the alcoholic, did they ever seek treatment? Did they ever, recover from that? And how does that? Oh, go ahead.
Sure. As far as the addiction is concerned, or was concerned, who is my father, he passed on at an early age. And so for me, that was another defining moment in my life, because he ended up having kidney cancer as a result of alcoholism. And so for me, I used to remember the times I would plead with him to, stop drinking, stop smoking cigarettes, because he was a chain smoker as well. I didn't see him on the weekend because he was he had a gambling addiction as well. But the illness that took place, that was something I was in denial about, because I thought that, after he had the surgery, he would get better.
Correct.
However, even upon having the surgery, he only had a few more months to live. And I just thought that the surgery would basically fix everything.
Yes, ma'am.
So we still had, we were not totally estranged, but because of his lifestyle and because of how I saw how it did affect him, and the fact that he did not want to make any changes, he never sought to get any treatment. He didn't feel like he had a problem because that was his lifestyle. So he never saw, or recognized the signs that he had an addiction with alcoholism or gambling, and how it affected our household, our family, and his marriage, with my mother. However, in the process, me thinking that he's getting better, he did not. So during his last days, I was there for him.
Correct.
And trying to make amends with him in the process of him basically realizing that his life pretty much was ending. Mm-hmm. And another defining moment for me with him was when he's pretty much in practically his last days, and he shared with me that he was afraid of dying. Okay. So in that moment, we prayed the prayer of salvation together, and he led his life to Jesus Christ. So that was prior to his death, probably maybe a day or so prior to his death, that was the biggest change, I would say, or biggest impact, that everything that he realized that he was afraid and did not know what he was going to be facing, that he made that decision to do that, to accept Jesus Christ into his heart as his personal Lord and Savior. So after that, I was at peace. And so I would say that would be the biggest change with regard to him basically having an awakening moment for himself and seeing that was what he needed for his life.
Forgiveness. What does that mean to you today, and how does that affect your life today?
Well, forgiveness indeed was one of the biggest challenges I ever had to face in my life. A lot of it stemmed from not just my father, but other people who were dear to me in my life. Once again, I would say the people that were closest to me were the ones who have hurt me the most. And I believe that generally happens for a lot of people, but it's just you don't expect for people to let you down that are close to you. Expect them to be there for you no matter what. So forgiveness for me was very challenging initially. I had a hard time being able to let go of remembering the way in which I was treated by those who were dear to me. However, as I got to a place in my life where, I knew who Jesus Christ is, I know who he is to me, putting him first and foremost in my life. I got to a place where I had to understand that everyone makes mistakes. Everyone makes bad choices and decisions, and even good choices and decisions. And ultimately, it's for everyone to be able to learn from whatever they choose to do in their life. I had to learn that even with my father, and even those others who have wronged me, that they made those decisions not so much to deliberately set out to hurt me, but because of whatever they were battling within themselves, whatever they were dealing with in their own life, that they made certain choices and decisions that ultimately may have affected them, but also impacted my life as well as the lives of others. They did what they knew to do in that moment or time to the best of their ability, and sometimes not really thinking clearly what they were making a decision on in terms of what they were doing. So when it came down to, doing certain things that would have affected their life or impacted mine, I had to come to terms with that, because not only did they wrong me at some point I may have wronged someone else.
Correct.
And may have done so knowingly and in some cases unknowingly. So once I came to that conclusion or determination that, well, surely if God could forgive me for the things I've done wrong to others, then surely I can forgive my father and others who, are dear to me, people that I've worked with, people that I've helped, and, just basically took advantage of the situation. I had to realize that surely, in the process I can forgive them, because they're where they are with what they know in that moment in time, and they're doing the best to their ability, and some out of fear making choices to not do certain things that they perhaps should be doing, and facing challenges that perhaps that may have been unnecessary because of them trying to take shortcuts in life, or, trying to get over, in some other form or fashion through other people, and in the process facing challenges they otherwise perhaps should not have even had to face to begin with.
I know you have a very inspiring show that you're the host of, Dare to Outdo Yourself. Mm-hmm. How does that feeling of inspiring people, changing people's life with the words that you speak to them, how does that impact you?
Well, Dare to Outdo Yourself, it airs right here on Access 21,
Correct.
Mondays, 9 p.m. weekly, and of course it streaming and of course all over AT&T Uverse as well. I'm very blessed to host that particular program as well as produce. And ultimately, the premise of the program is to help empower and challenge individuals to take charge of their life through preparation, performance, and persistence. That's one of my core beliefs in terms of how I live my life. And I believe that when individuals make decisions based on knowing that ultimately challenges are going to be things that we'll face, it's inevitable. We'll face challenges in life all of the time in various aspects of our lives, but the key thing is in being able to overcome challenges successfully is to know that you got to be prepared in different aspects of your life. Meaning that you've got a plan for what could be the worst case scenario that could take place with what I'm dealing with right now.
Yes, ma'am.
And then in the process, how am I going to perform or take action to be successful in the outcome of what I'm going through? And so that means taking some different measures and steps. It may be day by day, or it may be certain points and times of the day to lead you to where you want to be. And then lastly is being able to be in a position of saying, okay, I've got to persist, meaning I've got to continue on with a process that will ultimately get me to where I want to be, meaning achieving success. And so when you achieve the success, that's just having a legitimate favorable outcome, that's going to be beneficial not only for yourself but for others in the process. And so that success could be different for everyone.
And as far as challenging words, how do you define the word challenge? Okay,
so I know for most people, I know initially when I think about the word challenge, or when I thought about the word challenge, it would be in a negative connotation. Oftentimes when you think of challenge, you think about that which is difficult, that which is hard, that which is something that may be unattainable. However, for me, challenge means taking on an opportunity or a risk or a dare, if you will, to get you to where you ultimately are supposed to be.
Okay. Define a moment in your life when you faced a difficult challenge.
Okay, well, like I said, I faced various difficult challenges in my life, and I think the initial one I shared was when I was early in my teenage years, being commanded to do something that I didn't know how to do, and then learning from that you need to lead by example. However, I would say that even over time, I would say that still pretty much for me, defining moments have been when I have dealt with situations where I've learned not only about myself but about others in the process in terms of dealing with them concerning the circumstance. I know that many people, and I'm just referring to myself specifically, I've had challenges concerning finances. I've had challenges concerning relationships. I've had challenges concerning my health. And I would say that out of all of the